Hello, and welcome back to Dietitians Beyond Borders. I am your host, Jennifer Chalhoub, a registered dietitian, and I'm thrilled to have you join us for another journey into global nutrition practices. Today, we're traveling to the vibrant and diverse country of Australia. I'm joined by an inspiring guest, Lauren, a registered dietitian based in Australia, who will be sharing valuable insights into the profession of dietetics down under, from education pathways to healthcare roles and cultural food traditions. Welcome. Hi.
Hey Jennifer, thanks so much for having me.
Yes, I'm so glad to have you on the podcast. Could you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and how you became a dietitian?
Yeah, definitely. I'm an accredited practicing dietitian, advanced sports dietitian, and credentialed eating disorder clinician. And I'm based in Adelaide, which is in the south of Australia, so right down the bottom, and living along the coast. Yeah, really lucky to have the beach on my back doorstep, and but also yeah, live near the wine region and those sorts of things. So it's a great part of Australia.
So beautiful.
Um, Yeah, so I currently work across a few different settings. I work as a sports performance dietitian with a few elite female team sports based here in Adelaide. I also have my own private clinics, which I do around that, based out of a medical clinic. I work in a rehab hospital 1 day a week, which is cool because I can use some of my sports nutrition knowledge in like a rehab sort of context. And I also work for Sports Dietitians Australia. So that's the peak body for sports dietitians in Australia. So we organise professional development, we do advocacy for our profession, and also work with different stakeholders in terms of food and like supplement development, those sorts of things.
That's
Um,
incredible. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, no, all good. Um, so I suppose for me, like becoming a dietitian. Well, first of all, I sort of grew up in a sporty family, grew up playing sport myself. So knowing I wanted to do something that was involved in sport. I also grew up in a family where there was a lot of chronic disease, so I had a bit of an interest in terms of like prevention and management of chronic disease. Um, Knowing that would maybe work to something in healthcare, but I don't really like blood, I don't like guts. So it was trying to find something that could be a little bit more hands off. So yeah, working as a dietitian and then being able to specialize in sport has been, yeah, a really good match for me to be able to do that. Um, so really fortunate, the university near where I live, Flinders University, I was able to go there, completed my Bachelor of Health Science, majoring nutrition first, and then followed by my Master of Dietetics. And then once I was qualified as a dietitian, I was able to go and then complete SDA's sports dietetics course to become a sports dietitian. And so that was a 4 day intensive at the Australian Institute of Sport, which is really cool because you're amongst the athletes and their facilities, eating the same food hall. And then there was a few assessments after that as well to then complete that sort of qualification.
This is incredible, Lauren. Incredible. Wow. I mean, and for whoever is listening and watching this, every single guest speaker, that will, who will be joining us truly give a very different, very unique insight. But that Lauren, this is amazing. Honestly, the ambition, and I can see it. I can see it already, and of course we're gonna learn more about you today and more about, how dietitians, I know dietitians can go in multiple fields, as we know, right? But based on what you know, let's talk about the pathway to becoming a dietitian in Australia. What does the education and credential look like there?
Yeah, definitely. So first, to become a dietitian in Australia, you need to complete one of the accredited dietetics courses, which are available all around Australia. And these courses are regularly reviewed by Dietitians Australia, who's our peak body, to ensure that they maintain their credentialing. And for some people, they might go straight into their dietetics course, or for other people, they might do other health related courses, and then transfer over to a dietetics course after that. And I do know also for dietitians that might be coming from overseas, on the DA website, they also have details on how you can get your credentials recognised in Australia as well. But for your listeners, I'll direct them to the website because that's not something I know too much about.
Oh,
Um, but then I know, yeah, once you graduate from your accredited university course, you're then eligible to become a member of Dietitians Australia, otherwise known as DA. So you're a member of DA, and then you can also become part of the APD program, which is accredited practicing dietitians. And for that, you would normally do your first year as a provisional dietitian, and as part of that, you get 12 months of mentoring before you become a full APD. So this is just to be able to help support, yeah, junior dietitians coming into the profession to make sure that they're practicing within their scope and safely, but also to just looking after like their well-being as they enter the workforce. Um, and then once you're a full APD, you've then just got requirements each year to maintain your qualifications. So with ongoing professional development, which DA audit just to make sure that, yeah, everyone's doing what they're meant to be doing.
this is just incredible. I mean, it's so interesting how every country has, its own licensure, protocol and requirements. I mean, I'm not sure how much you're aware here in the US, for example. Recently they started, it was just a 4-year program, and then you do your dietetic internship. Which is 8 months, not even more than that. But then you have to pass the RD exam, and that's how you become a registered dietitian. Now, since beginning of 2024, actually, I can't believe it's been a year already. Um, they have to do a master's as well. So an undergrad of 4 years,
Mm.
master's of 2 years, and an internship to be and also to pass the RD exam to become a registered dietitian, which, it's a controversy. We'll get to that another time. Um, but it's so fascinating how, it seems with you, even just your internship, the mentorship is 12 months, it's 1 year, right? Wow,
Mm.
it's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's great. How are dietitians integrated into the Australian healthcare system, whether it's public or private sectors?
Yeah, so dietitians in Australia are integrated into both the public and the private system. Publicly, dietitians can work clinically in a hospital, whether that's inpatients or outpatients, could be in food service, in community roles, or even within like a government sort of organisation too. Privately, there's probably a lot more variety in terms of different roles that people might work, whether it be private clinics, private hospitals. They might be consulting with different food industries, public speaking, supplement companies. Also, there's naturally going to be a lot of like dietetics research, education, and then like for my interest as well, like working privately in sport as well, which is pretty cool. The government, we're really lucky in Australia through Medicare, which is a universal healthcare system. For those living with a chronic condition, you can get rebated visits through Medicare to be able to see an accredited practicing dietitian. And that's something they can organise with their local doctor. Also, our private health companies as well also offer like subsidies to see a dietitian privately. And we also have the a program for development of veteran affairs, so retired veterans, and also the NDIS, which is a National Disability Insurance Scheme. So that also helps for retired veterans and those living with a disability to be able to access dietetic support as well.
Very, very, very nice. Very nice. It seems that you guys are a little bit everywhere and anywhere, which is great. So, speaking of that, how do you feel like, based on your experience, your expertise, and also, your colleagues, your dietitian friends, how are they integrated? Like, are they valued enough? Do you feel like you guys have a strong role in, especially like the healthcare world, or even, in sports, right? Because the team is not just you guys and the athletes, but also you have multiple people in this team. So what can you tell me about that?
Yeah, I would say in like a medical setting, dietitians are definitely respected as a recognized go-to person for all sort of nutrition and dietetics sorts of needs. Um, I suppose something we find in Australia and potentially overseas as well. We know that dietitians are a regulated profession, and all dietitians can be nutritionists, but sometimes we find that for the public can be quite confusing in terms of whether they're seeing a nutritionist or a dietitian. That's a common concern that we find, and particularly nowadays with social media and the internet, that probably just makes it a little bit more blurry. So, really good for people to look into people's qualifications. From a sports angle, I would say working with Sports Dietitians Australia, we know that having an accredited sports dietitian on your team for any sort of like supplement provision, we want to ensure that they're evidence-based and being used appropriately and documented in consultation with the medical team. A lot of sports dietitians too in Australia do a lot of work with athletes experiencing like body image concerns, disordered eating, eating disorders. So we can have a really important role in the sports setting in terms of minimizing the risk for the sports organization. And also too, like we know that as a sports dietitian, we can implement our knowledge to be able to also boost performance. So whether that's reducing injury risk, optimizing concentration, and just in terms of all the other parameters for performance, like trying to go stronger and faster, having a sports dietitian on your side can definitely help that.
Wow, wow, that's amazing. And you know what? You said something very important. And other dietitians who, came onto this podcast said the same. The difference between being a nutritionist and being a registered dietitian or a licensed dietitian. Unfortunately, people don't know, right? They just look, okay, this influencer has a lot of followers, right? Has a lot of, or whatever. They showed that they were before, after. I'm sure you've seen that a lot. And it's scary. It's a scary world out there when you don't rely on somebody with credible resources, with evidence-based, as you mentioned. That is the top one priority. So that's great that you guys are at least trying. You're trying to make sure that this is kind of, you know, letting people relying more on you, instead
Yeah,
of others left and right. Yeah.
yeah, most definitely. We're on the same page there.
Yes. Sorry, Australia is such a multicultural nation. How does the diversity shape nutrition counseling and just dietary advice?
Yeah, Australia is a pretty cool place to live from a multicultural point of view. Even just as like someone that enjoys food, you can access so many different cuisines quite easily. Working as a practitioner, I find learned so much from meeting clients and individuals from different backgrounds. So listening to them, asking questions, being curious, learning about different traditions, different foods, different recipes has been really important. So having an open mind to that. For the workforce, we also have developed resources as well for different cultures. So, if you were someone practicing and seeing someone of a different culture or perhaps a different language, there are resources to be able to help people educate someone perhaps from a different language. But also too, like our workforce, we find amongst the dietetics workforce in Australia, there are dietitians of a variety of backgrounds. So it's also really nice as a community to be able to either refer on to a colleague that perhaps might be better suited, or also to just being able to like catch up, learn from them. Because yeah, we've all got something to be able to offer. And even within like our food service, like there's different cuisines that are available. So even from like an aged care point of view, it's great that everyone can still enjoy the food that they like and are used to.
Love it. Love it. Love it. So what role does Honestly, I tried to like read it so many times to say it again because that was new to me. The Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander food culture play in the modern Australian cuisine and dietetics.
And you got the wording and the pronunciation right, so well done. Um, And I would say, unfortunately, in my opinion, it's probably not enough. So there definitely are accredited dietitians in Australia that have an interest in this area and work in this area, particularly if they were working in rural and remote areas. Um, but I would say, in terms of like modern Australian dietetics, it's definitely something that has room for improvement in terms of how we build it into dietetics, but also how we support our Indigenous population as well. But I don't think that's just a dietetics concern, that's across the whole healthcare system as well.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, this was very fascinating when I was looking it up and trying to understand that, the culture and everything that comes to that. It's truly fascinating. Are there any common nutrition related health issues in Australia, and how do dietitians usually approach them?
Yeah, so Australia is quite a big country. And so we find that a lot of people do live in the cities, but also in those rural, remote areas, there's still people living out there too. And for those people there, often like access to all healthcare can be a concern. And from a nutritional point of view, access to good quality and affordable groceries, particularly like fruit and veg, can be a real concern for those people. Um, and also, too, we know that the Australian Guide to Healthy Eating, we know only 10% of Australians are eating, like, say, their vegetable and their salad sorts of serves. So a lot of people might wonder why, but then I suppose if we think about like cost of living, cost of these goods, and also access to them, there's lots of different sort of barriers there. I think too, being like a modern developed country, probably like lots of other countries in the world, just like the development of chronic disease, is something that we struggle with in Australia. Um, and then probably like what we mentioned earlier too, just probably a concern globally as well, just in terms of nutrition misinformation on the internet, and then from social media, like body image concerns, disordered eating, those sorts of things. So yeah, there's probably how dietitians approach them. It's yeah, big. There's lots of different ways.
Lots of
Um,
ways.
but
Lots of
yeah, that's probably
patience.
another podcast in itself.
Exactly. And lots of patience. I feel like I always tell all my colleagues, my dietitian colleagues, that the patience that we have, it's like a gift. Like the way, it's like we are sometimes like, we put our like psychologist hats on and our social worker hats on and although yes, we're not maybe qualified, but because we give our all to every single, patient or client, it's like you want to be their friend and be there for them, right? And giving them all. So absolutely, like we feel like we're like everywhere trying to help the patient. So yeah. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, what exciting trends or opportunities are emerging in the dietetics field in Australia?
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is just an Australia thing or a global thing. I find a lot of dietitians, we sort of refer to it maybe as like a portfolio career. So rather than maybe just having like one job that you might do 9 to 5, which even like within Australia, sometimes finding full-time work can be tricky. So I would find looking at my colleagues, a lot of us might have, and like what I sort of described earlier, a lot of us have like different jobs, which has pros and cons. But I think for me, I quite like it because I can work across multiple areas that are of interest. And even I've got some colleagues that maybe might not even work in dietetics. They might work part-time in dietetics and part-time pursuing a different interest. And I think it's cool too because it means that we can be a bit more flexible in terms of how we work. So whether that's working hours, days of the week, but also too sometimes whether it's in person, whether it's telehealth, whether it's hybrid, there's lots of flexibility there, which is nice. I'd also say in Australia too, probably traditionally we feel like dietitians might normally go into like a clinical setting or into community or private practice. But more recently, I would say dietitians are really broadening their scope where they can work in Australia. So particularly, I'd say like within sport, within food industry, research, we can really work wherever we want in the world, as sort of, yeah, the world's our oyster, which is great.
And I wish every single country gets to that point. I truly wish that. Um, I mean, and for the audience, again, who's listening or watching, eh, slowly with time, more awareness of the importance of a dietitian and nutrition is being embedded, right, in any field, in any country, wherever. But getting this opportunity to actually, as you mentioned, having multiple, and it's not even just the job, it's the opportunity, right? It's like your access, you helping out more people. And just you enjoying. And it seems that there are a couple of dietitians in Australia. It's good to have that variety, right? Because you feel stimulated, you feel like you're yeah, not like a 9 to 5 job, 1 2 3 and that's it. So that's wonderful. That again, I we'll see, hopefully one day. Good. So
Yeah, well, variety to spice of life, so it's pretty spicy, so it's good. Yeah.
exactly. So if you could offer one piece of advice to future dietitians or those considering a career in dietetics, what would that be?
Yeah, I think anything is possible. And I find like my dietetic skills are quite diverse. So it can be, like you said, like working quite specific in nutrition and dietetics, but it's also like those skills of counseling, and helping people through all those other barriers that might relate to food. And also too, like for many of the jobs I have, they didn't exist 10, 15 years ago when I was at uni. So I think it just shows like the growth in dietetics. Like it can really go in any way. Um, it's pretty awesome. So yeah, for myself, say working a lot in female sport, 10, 15 years ago, the number of female sports teams was a lot less, and probably to the industry's awareness of a sports dietitian was less as well. So I find it exciting in the past 10, 15 years, what change has occurred. And give it another 10, 15 years, it's pretty exciting to see where it might be at.
Yeah, that's amazing. And as you said, things change and nutrition is such a young science. Things evolve by the day, by the day. So wonderful. Thank you so much for giving us such an insightful look into dietetics in Australia. To all our listeners, if you found today's episode inspiring, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your community. Lauren, truly, you've been phenomenal. We all love you here, and you're always welcome to come in anytime. I've never been to Australia, so hopefully one day I'll
You're
be.
welcome.
Yes. Oh, I've seen pictures. It's phenomenal, beautiful. But yes, so for our listeners, until next time, stay curious, stay nourished, and keep exploring nutrition beyond borders. Thank you.